The April 2026 arrivals report from the U.S. government has been published on the 5th of May, 2026. That report indicates a fair number of South Africans have now come over here. This raises the question that many South Africans asked when the announcement was made by the Trump administration what their expectations for refugee program this year are. A few months back, at the beginning of the fiscal year, or the end of the last fiscal year. In that announcement, the Trump administration indicated that they were planning on taking just 7,500 refugees in fiscal year 2026. Our fiscal year runs from 1 October until 30 September. That means just 7,000 South Africans from that total would be coming to the U.S. under the program. A lot of South Africans were apoplectic. What does that mean? Does that mean we'll miss out? Is it too late? I've assured South Africans from the very beginning that that's the fiscal year cap, and that even if that cap were reached, they would simply continue those approved in the next fiscal year when the cap for that is announced, which would begin on 1 October 2026. However, I've also said from the very beginning that I'm not even remotely convinced that that cap will be solid, that they'll evade that cap or surpass that cap. One of my viewers correctly pointed out that historically we've never went beyond the cap. But my point wasn't whether they would go beyond the number and violate the cap, which isn't set in stone, it's a goal, an objective, but rather that the Trump administration, if they're serious about this program for South Africans, would find a way around it. There are other programs, or they could go back to Congress and say, we are raising the cap. Now that's sort of rare, if not unprecedented, but that's exactly what Reuters reported just a few weeks ago, claiming that officials in the Trump administration have said that they intend to raise the cap for fiscal 2026 from 7,500 to 17,000, given that we're now less than 5 months left in the fiscal year, less than half, and we have not seen the cap raised yet. When it does get raised, that would mean potentially a flood of South Africans coming in before 30 September. Let's take a look at the numbers so far, and then I'll mention a couple of programs which have been used in the past to get people into the country effectively as refugees going around caps. So first up, the FY 2026 Refugee Cap, as I've referred to ever since this was announced in late August of 2025. For 2026, there have been 6,066 South African arrivals. The allocation was just 7,000 for South Africans of the 7,500. That means that from October through April, there have been 87% of the cap achieved, leaving very few slots for South Africans to come over here, basically less than 1,000. 944 refugees can come. It's already the 6th of May. How many have come over? We know refugees arrived on the 1st because I've interviewed one of them. The 1st of May, we had a refugee arrival. Now we're looking at 944. How many of those slots have been taken? Well, as I've said, I don't think that the cap really matters. If I'm wrong, that's unfortunate, but my analysis has been all along that the Trump administration is serious about this program and about the situation in South Africa, and they want to take action. If they don't increase the cap, what else could they possibly do? First, let's talk about a program called Temporary Protected Status. TPS is a humanitarian program that allows nationals from designated countries who are experiencing ongoing armed conflict, environmental disasters, or extraordinary temporary conditions to live and work legally in the U.S. It prevents deportation, provides work authorization that lasts between 6 to 18 months, and can be extended. Now, this you would think would not be applicable to South Africans, but stay tuned. In order to be eligible, we must be a citizen of a designated country, be continuously physically present in the United States since the designated date, so that would appear to prevent South Africans from taking advantage of it unless they were already here on another type of visa. It's temporary, and it's not a path to permanent residency or citizenship. You can't get it. Also, temporary protected status holders are not eligible for most public assistance programs. As of early 2026, these include countries like Venezuela, Haiti, El Salvador, Ukraine, armed conflict, Honduras, Afghanistan, Nepal, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Syria, Burma, Nicaragua, and so on. An individual who is eligible for temporary protected status must register an application with the U.S. Customs Immigration Service. As of May of this year, the Supreme Court is reviewing the legality of certain temporary protected status terminations that the Trump administration has undertaken in the past year. But as of March 31st of 2025, shortly after Trump came in office, TPS had been extended to nearly 1.3 million people from 17 countries. That includes 602,000 Venezuelans. Let's talk about another program that's used, and this is one that might be more applicable. TPS doesn't seem to apply. But humanitarian parole allows individuals who are otherwise inadmissible to enter the United States temporarily due to urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit. Well, I don't know there's any significant public benefit by letting South Africans into the country. There's no need. But an urgent humanitarian reason, I think that seems plausible. This can be medical emergencies or to visit dying relatives. It's granted by USCIS. It's not a visa, and it does not lead directly to permanent status, and it usually lasts for up to 2 years. It does require a sponsor in the U.S. to file a form, and it's highly discretionary. It's not a substitute for a visa, and it can be revoked. Beyond individual emergency requests, the U.S. has also used humanitarian parole for specific groups. Aha! And this is where South Africa comes into play, if they choose to use humanitarian parole. It's been used for the CHMV program, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. And also for Ukrainians. Ukrainians have come here on humanitarian parole, not admitted as refugees in many cases, but under humanitarian parole for up to 2 years. So where are we at this stage? Nearly a year into this program with the first arrivals coming on the 12th of May 2025. Well, South Africans, United States, here's the total so far. 335 arrived in fiscal year 2025. In April 2026, we reached the peak, the highest number yet of 1,570 refugees in the first full calendar month since the program began of actual arrivals. For the fiscal year, that's 6,066, 4 of whom have returned to South Africa. That means that 6,397 South Africans are currently in the United States under the Refugee Relocation Program. Now, I'm not claiming that either temporary protected status or humanitarian parole will be applied for South Africa. Certainly not TPS. That seems implausible. But humanitarian parole could be used as a stopgap measure if they choose not to increase the cap. Whatever the case is, a lot of South Africans are definitely concerned. 6,066 out of 7,000 for the year. With a little under 5 months to go, that doesn't leave a lot of space for South Africans to come over here, if in fact the cap is solid, if it's not going to be raised. But as I pointed out earlier, sources in the Trump administration have told Reuters that they are already discussing raising this to 17,000 for the year, which is more than enough at the current pace and then some to bring South Africans over here for the rest of the fiscal year. Well, folks, there you have it. A little update on what could happen. We don't know, though. We'll have to see what the Trump administration decides. If the Trump administration does not raise the cap or use an alternative method to bring South Africans over here, then South Africans will stop coming to America, at least for the rest of this fiscal year, very soon. Very soon. And that'll mean likely over 4 months of no refugees arriving. And that would be unfortunate, given the vast interest in this program and the number of people who've applied to come over here. It would leave a lot of people waiting and waiting and waiting. What say you, South Africa? Mzansi. Cheers.